Today on the Cameron Journal podcast, I am so happy to be joined by Oscar Vasquez. He is the founder of EstateDocPrep.com. Yes, everyone, strap in. Today we're going to be talking about death and estate plans and wills and all this type of thing. And as anyone who's had a relative die, and my audience is reaching the age where grandparents are gone, parents are starting to go. I have a couple friends whose parents have passed in recent memory, all this type of thing. We all know how nice it can be when all that end of life stuff is organized. It's a lot more complicated than one would think, sort of thing. But it's all very important. So, yes, everyone, get ready. We're talking about death. We're talking about end of life. It's going to be fun. Welcome, Oscar, to the Cameron Journal podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. Excited to bring some great information to all your listeners.
Yes, thank you. So why don't, well, I want to kind of start a little bit existentially first. Why don't you tell us about how you got into this business in this industry?
Well, I've been in I'm originally I've been in the real estate industry for about 28 years. So I
Mhm.
started off in the mortgage industry, started off in the real estate industry, and I've always referred customers out to estate planning attorneys until their fees started to get anywhere from 3,500 to $15,000 for an estate plan. And so we what we did is we took the leverage, we leveraged out all the customers. And so we charged a fraction of a cost and we created a software that can write an estate plan for any state of the land, according to the
Nice.
states, according to that land, according to the law of each state. And where it used to take, where attorneys now take 45, 3 to 6 weeks or 12 weeks to do them, we can do them in as little as 4 days. And I
Oh,
say
wow.
4 days because the simple fact that people take a while to think about what they want in their estate plan.
Well, that's the human part's the slow part, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, AI has no emotion, man, no thought. That is true. Very well put. I'm gonna have to use that one, Cameron. Thank you for sharing that. The human part is the delay. Yes.
Yes. So, I mean that's a great motivation to get I guess to do this business. Are you still doing real estate?
I am. I'm still actively in real estate. We provide the services. I always tell people that estate planning is one of 11 services that we offer our customers. And we usually go into those estate service or those plans once once we have established a relationship and we kind of go into it. But yeah, we've definitely been in real estate in the Southern California area for about 28 years now.
Oh no. Have you survived the fire?
Yeah, I am north. I hear I'm in Ventura County, which is just north of Pacific
Oh,
Palisades, about 35 minutes.
the fire's going the other direction.
Yeah, but 3 weeks ago, it was in my backyard. It was in Moore Park, which was south of me, Santa Paula, which is west of me, and in Piru, which is east of me. So we were like blocked in there for. So this has been a very, very, um, very fire season for us here in SoCal. Where
Yes.
what part of the world are you in? Where are you at, Cameron?
I today I'm currently in Hartford, Connecticut.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
Is it you? Well, you guys are going to get a blizzard out there. Here, I hear that's coming that way over there.
Yes, snow is definitely in prospect. Not looking forward to it. I usually am in Wilmington, Delaware, and
Oh,
it's far enough south we don't get a lot of snow. Unfortunately, I had an issue with my apartment, so I had to come up here for the winter, and unfortunately that also means snow. So, but it's okay. I'm originally from Denver. Snow doesn't cross me my eyes none. I just don't like it. And if I got spoiled by living in Seattle for 10 years with no snow. And
wow.
so yeah, so now I'm a bit of a whiner when it comes to snow, but I mean, when I lived in Denver, snow didn't slow us down unless it was feet of it. It was like, oh, it snowed 6 inches. Well, yeah, shovel out the driveway and go on about your life, sort of thing. So,
Yeah.
but It's yeah, well I mean, there's going to be a lot of unfortunately new real estate with the fire. There's going to be
Yeah, there's going to be, you know what? I was just, we were just talking about that. In our, we have a, what's called a mastermind group where a lot of professionals get together and they, one of the things that we started to talk about is, okay, this is the negative that happened to us, but how do we make lemonade from lemons, right?
yeah.
Um, and when life gives you lemons, how do you make the best of it? And we said, you know what? If one, well, here's the stuff about the fire that many people don't know is that probably about 35%, which over 3,000 homes, got letters just less than a week and a half prior to the fire that their fire insurance got canceled in California.
Right.
So a lot of people are getting automobile cancellation and fire insurance cancellation. So there's going to be a lot of people that are not going to be able to rebuild because the average home in the Pacific Palisades is averages $5 million. That's like a starter home in the Pacific Palisades, where
Right.
normally it's going to be like, out there is going to be like $60 million or something like that. It's stupid crazy on how expensive it is.
Yeah. No, I mean that is yes. That I mean there's already been that conversation going. So, well, let's that was a nice fun detour. We do that here. But we'll
Yeah,
get
that's
we'll get
okay.
we'll get back on the highway. End of life estate planning, how most people don't want to think about it. They're in high avoidance about it, but everyone says, "Oh, you got to do it," and nobody really wants to do it. So, to give people the pep talk as to why they should have an end of life plan.
Well, I think this. I think for, I'm on a crusade to be able to bring awareness to estate planning, and so people know why estate planning is important. One and two, how does it function? And three, is there any big benefit to having an estate plan? So I would say the number one reason why people that get an estate plan is they knew somebody that went to probate. They had an uncle, aunt, cousin, nephew, or somebody that did not have an estate plan, and the government took over and made all the decisions for them and then held their money for 6 to 18 months and then gave them the money. And
Right.
they had to pay a bucket load. I'll give you an example. Probate in California, the minimum probate cost is about $26,000 if you own a $500,000 home, and in California that is like a starter home. So one is that if you don't have an estate plan in place, you're going to have to go to probate. Two, if you have an estate plan in place, you avoid probate, which saves you money. Two, if you have an estate plan, it it gives you peace of mind because your beneficiaries or your kids. I'm going to take one step back before I tell you all the benefits. I'm going to go back one step and define in the simplest terms what is an estate plan. An estate plan is a agreement or a contract between you, which is the parents, and the beneficiaries, which are usually your kids. And that is enforced by the third party, which is our government. There's three things that a government, or there's three things that make an estate plan and living trust, which is that is the legal term or the document that it's created. And a living trust needs to have one, it needs to be signed in front of a notary. Two, it should be signed in front of two witnesses. And three, it needs to be funded. In other words, you got to put assets inside of the living trust. Now, known to me, I just learned this. I know I'm 53 years old. I should have already known this, but I just helped a a content creator that has YouTube channels, and they call them facelift channel. And I asked him, "Why do you want to put that channel?" He goes, "Well, my digital asset of income that keeps getting views, and he gets paid from videos that he made years and years ago. So that's an asset. So he's putting that asset into the living trust. So if he passes, YouTube already knows where the checks need to go. They continue to go into the living trust, and the living trust does distributions. So that's how much detail. I had a question about a couple days ago, and the question that I had was, how detailed or how deep can a living trust go? Took me about 5 minutes to really, really think. And then I said, the living trust can have as detailed instructions that is only limited to one's mind. In other words, whatever your mind can think of, it can go into the living trust, because the living trust is an instruction to a loved one in order to be able to be executed based on your instructions that you left behind. So that's one of the basics of what is a living trust. And now what I like to do is the most common question, Cameron, that I get is the difference now, or the biggest misconceived conception is one. There's two. The first one is that I'm not rich, I don't need a living trust. Well, let's go over who actually is going to be able to avoid probate. I'll give you an example. In Colorado, if you own anything in excess of $60,000, the government gets involved and makes the decisions for you if you do not have a living trust, a revocable living trust. The government gets involved anything over 60,000. And like in each state, what I recommend is for any of one of the listeners, Google what's the minimum or the maximum amount of assets I need to prevent me from going to court. In Washington State, we had a customer today. It's 100,000. Colorado is 60,000. Florida's 80,000. In California, it's 180. But that means if you own a piece of real estate anywhere in the land, more than likely you're going to go to probate if you do not have an estate plan, or if you do not have a revocable living trust, which is also known as an estate plan.
Right. Yes. Well, I mean this, I mean, yes, I think it's what do you think is the hardest thing to overcome to convince people they need to actually do this and take it seriously?
I think this. I don't think, here's an interesting statistic. 68% of homeowners in America do not have a living trust or an estate plan. And I came to the conclusion that's why I started this crusade, was to start this crusade to bring awareness to everybody so now they know. If you're hearing this podcast, you know your beneficiaries or your kids are going to go to probate if you don't get a living trust. So now now you cannot unknow, or what they say is, once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. Now that you know that you're going to go to probate, it's up to you to get an estate plan. I think the number one thing is that they have the misconception that you have to be wealthy to have an estate plan. That's the first. The second is they don't know that how it functions and the functionality of and the economics of a living trust. An example, California, $26,000 is the minimum they're going to be charged to go to probate if they have a home. Minimum 26. Plus, it's going to take 6 to 18 months to get the money. How are your beneficiaries and your kids have to wait 18 months to get their money because they did not have a living trust? So I think it's not the convincing. It's funny that I'm starting to do workshops, and what the people that I find when we give out when we talk about the living trust, and we ask the question, who here knows somebody that's gone through probate? And I always tell people, do you know anybody that's gone through probate? No, ask around. You'll know somebody knows somebody that has gone through probate. And when they hear those stories in the probate about probate, they call us up and they get started right away, because they're like, kids, I do not want my kids to go through that expense or that terror of having the government decide what happens to your stuff. Because guess what? Not only when it goes to probate, the courts publish your assets and they publish that you're dead and they say, hey, Oscar died and he has X amount in assets. If he owes you money, come forward so we can pay you, right?
Right.
A living trust prevents that from happening because it's private. So they publish it and then they let the world know about what happened. So I don't think it's much convincing. I think that people need to be educated, take the time, and be able to take action. Because if you have kids or you're a homeowner, a comprehensive living trust is what our software creates. Is a comprehensive living trust that comes with additional documents that come in there.
Well, no, that's quite impressive. I know a lot of people have a lot of trepidation. The first time, it's funny you mentioned real estate because the first time I ever ran into this was when I worked in real estate. And
Nice.
I worked for a small rental housing association in the Seattle area. And so for a lot of our members, it was very important because these people didn't just own houses, owned a house, they owned houses or apartment buildings. I had one client, her and her husband were Japanese. They had 900 units in the city. I mean, it was a
Wow.
huge business. Yeah, I mean, huge apartment buildings, single family houses, I mean, all this type of thing. And I felt sorry for her because her husband died, never told her how to run the business, and I literally taught her how to run her property business over the phone. Like she would call
Wow.
me every day. What do I do? What do I do? Call this person, do that, do sort of thing. And that's how she learned. It took us 6 months, but she figured it out. Um, and so I mean, so it was, so you were talking, especially in that real estate market at that time, millions of dollars, easily,
Right.
sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it was funny because a lot of people were obviously very uncomfortable. I don't think anybody wants to contemplate their own mortality. Um, for any longer than they have to. But it was really important for, their personal assets, this real estate business, all this type of thing, and to give the kids an option to sell, keep collecting rent, take over the business, whatever have you. And so, yeah, I'm not surprised now that I sit here and think about it, I'm not surprised that your experience in real estate blended into this because that seems to be when it becomes so important.
Yeah. Not just that, but that brings me to a interesting story that, there's if you own a business and it has assets, and that is another reason you should, because at a business, it generates income, has value. And if the value exceeds it, and you don't leave a successor, and you don't leave that, it could be tied up into probate. And the business, you may lose the business because it's not operational, or being
Right.
have access to the money because it's non operational. If it's in a living trust, you have your operating agreement, you have instructions, you have all of the SOPs, which is standard operating procedures, on how to do that. And I'll give you an example. One of my customers that got a living trust, we sold him, or he purchased, because we're in financial services as well, but he purchased a key person insurance policy for $1 million. And that gave, and when he passed, that was a bakery, and he left the bakery over $1 million in cash once he died, on top of the business. But that was for him or for the family to find a new operator to operate the business so they can still generate income and the business can operate. So instead of leaving them the money to go vacation, he left them the money so the business can continue to run and they can find a replacement for him, because he was the key person in that business. And he left a very detailed plan to be able to do that. So if you're a business owner and you have an asset that can be worth more than the minimum required, that would definitely be something to consider in having an estate plan, putting an estate plan in place.
Yes, that is something that I was telling someone. It's like I'm finally getting to the stage of life where I think I should finally start thinking about this stuff. Like we're getting big enough here and all this type of thing. It's finally start to, think about all that sort of thing and whatnot. So yes, I totally understand that. And I think for business owners, it's a very unique, situation. So, um It's yeah, and it's especially, like for me owning a platform, the Cameron Journal could continue on without me, sort of thing. So with all of our contributors and all that type of thing, it could soldier
Sure.
on, sort of thing. So yeah, these are all, but I mean, but these are very, very tough conversations, I think, but very
Yeah.
important ones, as uncomfortable as they are, don't you think?
Yeah, I think what's even tough, not only it's the finances, but we see a lot of people out there that have a special needs child and they need a special needs revocable trust for them.
Yeah.
And that is, I mean, because what's going to not only how who's going to take care of them, and I like using the story from this educator. She had an education, she had a special needs child, and one of her instructions on her living trust, and it didn't really hit me until probably 3 or 4 days, and I go like, wow, how thoughtful was that, and how much love and detail did she have for her child to be able to think of that. And one of the things that she put on the living trust was she put away a $10,000 an insurance contract. It's called an annuity. Put it away, and it generated enough money for her to buy 4 tickets every year for the rest of her life, and then some, to be able to go to an amusement park because her child was that was the highlight of the year. They have countdowns, like how many more days left before we can go to the park again, right? And so she put that into the living trust, that she wanted in the special needs trust, that these funds were to be used, allocated just for that purpose alone. I mean, obviously, all the additional expenses. There's not very much. I mean, well, I don't know if she allocated it for Disneyland, because I hear that now Disneyland, it's like a $25,000 trip for a family of four. That's, I hear it's getting expensive out there.
Well, they can always slum it down to Knott's Berry Farm if they have to.
Yeah,
So,
there you go. That's true. That's true. Well, I mean, I think the last time we went, a 3-day park hopper ticket in Disneyland was like 375, three hundred and
yeah.
seventy five bucks for 3 days. That's. I mean, how does a family afford to do that? I mean, that is just
No, I
insane.
mean that's the conversation that always is going on about that stuff. It's that stuff is not cheap, not by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah,
So,
but planning ahead, Cameron, is something that I think the estate planning does. So one, understanding, I think one is understanding what it is. Two, if you're a homeowner, you need an estate plan to prevent you from going to probate. That's the number one reason everybody gets an estate plan, is to prevent themselves from going to court. One. Two, the second reason is that the cost basis from the real estate goes up to when you die. I'll give you an example. You bought the property in 1970 for $30,000. Today in 2025, it's now worth, 50 years later, now it's worth 900,000, call it $1 million, right? And now that it's worth $1 million, when you die, your beneficiaries will get the property at $1 million cost basis, and that means that now they pay taxes on anything they sell over $1 million. That's why most kids that don't live in the state, they call and they say, "Hey, my dad died. He left me the property. Sell it and send me the money," because they don't have to pay taxes on the money. It's tax free to them because the parents had an estate plan in place or a living trust. And that is something that is off the hook and just totally, totally the best amount of money that you could save on taxes and avoid probate.
yeah, I mean there and yes, I mean I think there's just so as like I said, always as uncomfortable as a conversation as it is a vital one to have because probate is miserable. You don't want to do it. The taxes can be insane, sort of thing. Especially once you get in, at a certain level, if you get into the even single digit millions, it's only I think 4.5 million for a married couple, and then inheritance taxes kick in all this sort of thing. I mean, it can become a whole mess very quickly. Lawyers will get very rich off of it. You will not. So, that's so yes, it's a very vital conversation to have. So, yeah, why don't that's very good. So, well, why don't we do this? Why don't you let us know where we can find your service online
Yeah.
and all this sort of thing?
Yeah, one of the things that there's a couple of things that we have a discount code for anybody that's listening to the Cameron podcast, the Cameron Journal podcast. You go to estate doc prep, estate doc prep, like preparation.com, and you could use discount code Cameron Journal, and that's a $1,000 discount for the first 10 people that get a discount, get a estate plan. You'll be able to check out using that code, the first 10. So the coupon code or that discount code will be available until the 10. When the 10 show up, it's no longer available. Once you do that, now you can go to estate.prep. Now we do have what's called we have an artificial intelligence phone number that we share with you, so you could ask any question that you may have about estate planning in any state in the land, and that's 805-909-4689. That's 805-909-4689. Now, this is an artificial intelligence receptionist. She can answer any questions. She'll give you some basic rundowns. She can pretty much give you any kind of scenario with no pressure whatsoever. We're not here to pressure. We're here to educate and guide you to get what you want. So we never do that. And if you want to talk to me, you can ask her to transfer you, or you could basically just ask her to set up an appointment, and she'll set up an appointment for you free of charge, and we can have a chit chat, and we'll customize something and give you an idea to see if an estate plan is good for you.
Excellent, excellent. All right. Well, as difficult as it is, everyone, this is a great conversation. So thank you, Oscar, for coming on the Cameron Journal podcast.
Thank you very much for having me, and we'll talk to you soon.
That's all for this episode of the Cameron Journal podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Visit us online at CameronJournal.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and I love to talk to my followers and listeners, so please feel free to get us on social media at Cameron Cowan on Twitter, and we'll see you next time on the Cameron Journal podcast. Thank you.